Welcome to tip number 12, using or following a parts matrix. Now I know that some of you already do use a parts matrix and you follow a parts matrix, and some of you don't. I still run across shops that are somewhat unfamiliar. There are 3 different ways that people mark up their parts, and each of those will get you a different percentage of parts margin. One is to double the part, and if you double the part you would think, okay, I'm going to get 50% parts margin if I'm always doubling the part. Using a 100% multiplier, I take a $50 part, I sell it for 100, and that gives me a 50% margin on that $100 part. But if you use that method, when you get to the end, because of things like engines and transmissions where you won't mark them up 50% or you won't double them, you'll have a much lower parts margin, probably somewhere in the 36% to about 40% parts range. Some of you will follow the manufacturer's suggested list. Unfortunately, the manufacturer's suggested list also doesn't get you what you need. Even though somebody somewhere determined that that's what the part should sell for, it's still not going to get you what you need. And if you're following manufacturer's suggested list, and you do it all the time, you're pretty religious about it, you probably end up with a 42, 44% parts margin. We need a 58% parts margin, therefore we have to follow a different methodology, and that is a parts matrix. Now, a parts matrix is pretty simple. We're going to put one up here for you, but a parts matrix basically says as the part increases in price, that your multiplier, so you may start with a very high multiplier here, 3.5 or 4 times a dollar part. So if I get this part and I sell it for, I mark it up on my matrix of 3.5, it sells for $3.50, and that gives me a about a 75, 76% margin on that particular part. And as I get down here, I might have a 1.85 multiplier, and that 1.85 multiplier will get me a lower margin. So what really matters here is the average part that you sell. If you sell a lot of parts in the lower range, and you follow a parts matrix, and you do it religiously, no matter what you do, you're going to have lower margins overall. If you buy more parts in the higher range at less cost, then you're going to have higher parts margin. And one of the tricks in the automotive business is to make sure that while you're doing an engine here, a transmission there, you're also doing those jobs that have high margin, like coolant flushes and brake flushes, things that the car needs, but that have good margin and good productivity in them. Unlike engines and transmissions that don't have quite as good margin and may not have quite as much productivity. Now, engines and transmissions are valuable because they bring dollars in, and we pay our bills with dollars, but so are coolant flushes and brake jobs and water pumps, because those things have higher margin and they bring more dollars in per dollar that you do. Now, following a parts matrix is really pretty easy. The way that you want to follow a parts matrix is this. You get a part for $2, and you mark that up times 2.5 or 3.5. If you mark it up times 3.5, then that thing's going to go out at $7. If you get a part in your business for $9 and you mark it up times 2.7, then that's going to equal about $24.30. Okay? Now, what you do is as the price gets higher on the part, that you actually lower your markup. So if you get a $40 part in and you multiply that times 2.5, that's going to get you a 60% margin, but that part's going to go out for $100. That's what you're going to sell it for. And then, of course, on the higher end, if we had a part for $170 and we marked it up times 1.85, then that would equal about $314.50, give or take a penny. So you can see here that as the parts get more expensive, that they actually, we mark them up a little less, and we get less margin, but we get good dollars. And as the parts are less expensive, we mark them up higher and we get a good margin, better margin, and not as many dollars. The thing is that most shops, most of the parts they sell are somewhere right in here. So if we can balance this out to be 58% with the right number of these and the right number of these, we will always get what we want from our business. Following a parts matrix is very important. Now here's one thing that happens often, and that is a thing called emotional discounting. And I need you to remember something. Emotional discounting is bad. It's not something that we want to do. Emotional discounting means that I'm invested in the vehicle or the customer so much that I'm willing to give up my profits and my money so that they can be happy. It's not a good thing. Emotional discounting has no place in automotive. I did not build the car. I did not buy the car. I did not drive the car. I did not break the car, and therefore I should not supplement or pay for the repairs or the maintenance of the car. In my shops and the shops that I work very hard with them to make sure that there is no emotional discounting and that we are following a fair process to mark up parts, and that happens to be our parts matrix. Now, one more comment before we end this tip. Sometimes I'm going to have to mark up a part for more than someone else would sell it. In fact, this is something we've been dealing with in our industry from at least the 40 years that I've been involved. There's always been someone out there that will sell the part cheaper. Now we have more online competition, we have more price shopping. None of that really matters. I have to sell the part for enough that puts money in my bank and gives me the profit that I need, and I cannot get emotionally attached. Some customers may not want to buy from us because our prices might be a little higher. We can live with that because there's enough customers out there that want the other things that we do. My recommendation is you put a parts matrix in place and you follow it religiously. Thank you very much for watching.